Ever heard of a 19th century Brazilian doctor who also dabbled in politics, fought for social change, became a leading voice in the Spiritist movement?
Sounds like they had their hands full.
That's an understatement. We're diving into the life of Adolfo Bezerra de Menezes Cavalcanti, better known as Bezerra de Menezes. And get this, we've got biographies, historical accounts, even his own writings to guide us.
It's amazing how his story overlaps with Brazil's own journey during a time of massive transformation.
Exactly. So no DeLorean needed. We're set to uncover this fascinating figure.
Let's start at the beginning, shall we? 1831, Ceará, Brazil. Bezerra de Menezes is born into a family facing financial struggles.
Tough start.
But even with those hurdles, his intelligence, it was obvious from the get-go. Get this, teaching Latin at 13.
13. Wow, some kids haven't even started high school then.
Right. It's no surprise he ends up studying medicine at a prestigious institution in Rio de Janeiro.
Makes sense. So we've got a brilliant mind, but was there something more to him?
Absolutely. This deep-seated commitment to social justice, it was already there. There's a story he donated his own medical school ring
His ring.
to a poor mother who couldn't afford medicine for her child.
Wow. Just giving away something so personally meaningful. That
Yeah.
speaks volumes.
It's no wonder he became known as the doctor of the poor then.
It fits, doesn't it? And it wasn't just a charming quirk. He believed healthcare was a right, not a privilege. Radical for the time. There's a quote from Lindos Quesos de Bezerra de Menezes. The true doctor is this. He doesn't have the right to finish his meal, to choose the hour, to inquire if it's far or near. Basically, refusing to treat someone because you're busy or tired. He's not a doctor. He's a businessman of medicine. Strong words.
Powerful stuff. Still rings true today. So we've got this brilliant, compassionate doctor dedicated to serving the poor. You'd think that'd be enough for one lifetime, but not for Bezerra de Menezes.
Not even close. That drive to serve, to make a difference, it spills into politics. In 1861, he's elected to Rio de Janeiro's city council. Now, I'm picturing 19th century Brazilian politics.
Right.
Was it a roller coaster?
Oh, every bit as dramatic. But here's the kicker. Bezerra de Menezes was a military officer.
Wouldn't that disqualify him?
Exactly. It sparked a legal battle, but he ultimately chose to serve the people.
And serve, he did.
Right.
Re-elected in 1864, even served as president of the city council, basically, the mayor. So what kind of leader was he? Did those progressive values carry over?
Absolutely. A true champion for the people. Domestic workers, for instance, a group often overlooked back then.
Right.
He fought hard to get regulations in place to protect their rights.
It's amazing how he managed all these roles, doctor, politician, reformer. But then again, maybe for Bezerra de Menezes, they weren't separate, just all connected by that desire to help others.
Exactly. And that brings us to another fascinating piece of the puzzle, his stance on slavery. 1869, he publishes an essay, the title, roughly translated, Slavery in Brazil and the Measures to Extinguish It Without Damage to the Nation.
Okay, now this is getting interesting. Brazil in the late 1860s, abolition was a hot topic.
You bet. And a risky one, especially for someone in Bezerra de Menezes' position. But he goes for it, advocating for a model similar to Britain's. And not just advocating for abolition itself, but also pushing for the social integration and education of freed slaves.
Wow, he was thinking long-term, wasn't he? To see abolition not as the finish line, but as like the starting point for achieving true equality.
Exactly. And this commitment to social justice, this understanding of the bigger picture, it becomes even more central when we get to the next chapter, the one that leads him to become a leading voice in the growing Spiritist movement in Brazil.
Now that's a story I'm ready to hear.
Oh.
So we left off with Bezerra de Menezes, this champion of social justice, deep in the world of politics, a successful doctor, and then Spiritism. How does that even happen?
Well, it starts like these things often do, with a book, it's 1875, and a Portuguese translation of Allan Kardec's The Spirits book falls into his hands.
Wait, the Spirits book? As in the book that basically launched Spiritism. That was the translation.
Yeah, the original was in French. But the point is, this book, right, with its ideas about spirits and mediums and reincarnation, it ends up with this doctor, this politician, a man of logic and reason. You'd think he'd just dismiss it.
Right. Especially back then, Spiritism wasn't exactly a casual conversation starter.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Bezerra de Menezes later says that reading this book, it felt familiar, like remembering something he'd always known. He even said he must have been an unconscious spiritist, or even, as they say, by birth.
Okay, now that's something else. To feel like a whole world of knowledge just clicks into place like that.
Right.
But even if it resonated, he was a man of science. Did he just accept it all at face value?
Not a chance. He approached Spiritism with that same critical eye. He observed, he studied, but what really solidified things for him was witnessing the work of this medium, João Gonçalves do Nascimento.
What was so special about this Nascimento? Was he like a celebrity medium?
He was known for performing what they called extraordinary cures. And not just, curing a cold. These were cases that had baffled the best doctors, even Bezerra de Menezes himself.
Okay, now that's interesting. To have this respected doctor, so dedicated to healing, be moved by this medium's abilities, there's something there.
Right. It really highlights the power of those experiences, but also Bezerra de Menezes' open-mindedness, right?
Yeah.
He was willing to change his views when faced with compelling evidence.
So he embraces Spiritism, but we're still in the 1880s. How did that go over publicly?
It wasn't easy. Spiritism, it came with a lot of stigma back then. Bezerra de Menezes even started using a pen name, Max, when writing for the newspaper O País,
A pen name. Why?
to avoid backlash that could hurt his medical and political careers.
Wow, talk about committed to your beliefs. So he's navigating this new spiritual path, but what about the Spiritism movement itself? Was it smooth sailing?
Not exactly. Remember, this was a movement finding its feet. Internal divisions, different takes on Kardec's teachings, even arguments about how Spiritism should be structured and practiced.
So typical growing pains for any movement gaining traction.
Exactly. And this is where Bezerra de Menezes' leadership skills, honed in those intense Brazilian political circles, really come in handy. He becomes this unifying force working to bridge the gaps within the Spiritist community in Rio de Janeiro.
So he's always bringing people together, first in politics, now in this new and rapidly evolving spiritual movement.
Precisely. He understood a fragmented movement wouldn't be as effective in spreading its message of charity, love, and understanding. And this drive to organize, to build a strong foundation, it leads him to a very prominent position.
He becomes the president of the Federação Espírita Brasileira, the FE, in 1889, right?
That's right, and it was huge. The FE was the Spiritist organization in Brazil, and Bezerra de Menezes stepped into this leadership role when the movement was still facing opposition.
Talk about pressure. It's like walking a tightrope. Trying to build up the FEB, make Spiritism more accepted in a skeptical society, all while handling internal disagreements.
Exactly. But that's Bezerra de Menezes for you. This constant drive to create a better, more just world, both physically and spiritually. It never seemed to waver.
So Bezerra de Menezes, this amazing combination of doctor, politician, social reformer, and now leader in Brazilian Spiritism, he guides the FE into a new era. But I'm still stuck on something you said earlier, this idea that his influence continues, that he's seen as a guiding spirit.
It's a central belief for many Spiritists, not just in Brazil, but globally. You see, in Spiritism, death isn't the end, it's more of a transition.
Not about heaven or hell, but about our spirits continuing to grow and learn.
Exactly. And just as we learn and grow as humans, Spiritism says our spirits keep going on that journey after our physical bodies are gone. And part of that journey can even involve communication with the living.
And that's where Bezerra de Menezes fits in. People say they receive messages from him.
Many do. There are mediums who say they channel his spirit, offering guidance, healing, even just words of comfort. And the thing is, these messages, they often reflect the same compassion, the same dedication to social justice that he was known for during his life.
So it's like his work continues.
That's the belief. He's transcended the limits of a single lifetime to keep advocating for a better world. That's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It really is. And you mentioned a film about his life, Bezerra de Menezes, or Diario de Espírito. Is that part of his legacy too, this lasting presence in popular culture?
Absolutely. That film came out in 2008, and it wasn't just a hit in Brazil. People connected with it all over the world, particularly within Spiritist communities. It shows how much his story still resonates with people, even over a century after his death.
He's more than just a historical figure then. He represents a life driven by compassion, by wanting to make a difference.
Exactly. And that's something everyone can relate to no matter what they believe. Whether you see him as a doctor, a politician, a spiritist, even this guiding spirit, it's that unwavering commitment to others, that empathy that shines through.
It makes you wonder, what would he fight for if he were alive today?
That's a great question to leave our listeners with. Imagine Bezerra de Menezes in 2024. What would he tackle first? Economic inequality, climate change, the division in our politics. And how could we use his example of intellect, compassion, and action to inspire us to create a better future?
It's that's something to think about as we navigate our own world. a reminder that one person, driven by purpose and compassion, can have a lasting impact, one that transcends lifetimes. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and a huge thanks to our expert for sharing their knowledge.